My name is pronounced Kambiz Naficy. I was born in Iran teaching Kriya Yoga in Dallas, which is very confusing. So the beginning of my life was about something else. I went to a branch of the Harvard Business School, became an international banker on Wall Street. One day I looked at myself in the mirror and realized that I don't know this person that I'm looking at, because I was lending money to the world, but I was a poet and a philosopher by nature. So I decided to divorce my life. And because I went through that, I will tell you that each one of you has 3 U's. You're like a sandwich. There's a first layer, middle layer, and top layer. Why are you 3 of you? First of all, there's a very spontaneous, innocent, truthful child within your being. On top of that, there's a hurt teenager up to 20-year-old. And that person became hurt because an event occurred, you gathered a perception about what just happened. That perception was your opinion, it wasn't truth. You kept reciting that perception until you hurt yourself. What I'm saying is, most of the things that hurt you at some age are not utter truth. It's the way you saw it when it happened. If you dig into the text of the Vedic text, they'll tell you that there is no one truth. So like there's 20 people listening to this talk, you'd be surprised to know that each one of the 20 is listening to the first 5 minutes in a different way. You're not all hearing me the same way. That's surprising to hear, but every one of you is looking through your lens. This lens is a big problem. It creates something which in yoga we call samskara. Samskara means your take on what happened during the prom night. For example, the wrong person asked you to the prom, you came up with your perception of why that happened. That perception is a samskara. It wasn't utter truth. It probably had nothing to do with your value. What if your parents got divorced when you were 6? What did you conclude about that? If there were 5 brothers, they had 5 different conclusions about your parents' divorce. So the divorce was neither here, neither there. You see what I'm saying? So be careful of one thing. According to the Vedas, yoga, there is this creative force out there, and this force is full of unlimited potential. In other words, that force, which is pure consciousness, communicates with your consciousness. So you're sitting here broadcasting up to that force. One of the big physicists in Princeton University said, you think you're living in Dallas, dealing with the traffic here and the population of Dallas. That's not what's happening. What's happening is you've got a mouse, theoretically, you've got a mouse in your hands and you're playing solitaire. What does that mean? You're shooting up your questions up to this force. This force is mirror-like, and it's ricocheting your ideology right back to you. So how do you become enlightened? You just keep one question in mind day and night. It's like, can I break through my typical ideas? Can I just challenge my habits and see what happens? If I go to visit mom, I'm going to modify my behavior 15% this time, this Sunday, to see if mom and I get into a fight or not. What did Mahatma Gandhi do? He said, my life is a laboratory. I keep changing my responses until I get the proper result. You see what I'm saying? So the way you're living right now, you're living within the confines of your skull. What if you were to shoot out and then test the result? You see, like the first 2 weeks that I started to meditate, something within me opened. So then the person in the New York City bagel shop started responding in a softer way to me. I couldn't figure out what had happened. But what had happened was my response had changed by 15%. So the bagel shop was responding differently to me. But what if this is all around you right now? What if you're surrounded by a God force that's intelligent? And that intelligent force is responding to what you're broadcasting. Well, the problem with what you're broadcasting is this. Watch my hands. Something happened earlier on, that's the event. You then gathered the perception, you laid a meaning on that event. That was your pet theory. And then you kept reciting it until it became your core belief. Now you're not looking at Dallas, you're looking at Dallas through your core belief system. And because you see the same thing, that conditions your behavior. So your behavior is predictable because your behavior is being guided by your belief system. At the very end, you say, Kambiz, didn't I tell you that life is like this? Well, then you're no different than the spider. The spider takes its own saliva, creates its own 10-bedroom mansion, lives in its own cocoon, and thinks that this is life. What if all 20 of you are doing the same thing? Watch this. Something happened when you were 5, let's say. You gathered a perception about what happened, but it was your take. You kept repeating that until it turned into your main perception of life. The problem with this is that it's driving your behavior. Because your behavior is being driven by a set of lenses, then your behavior is targeted to bring you the results that you think are true. If you lived with 9 brothers and sisters in a hut, now you're going to 8-star hotels, you may still have some of that poverty in your subconscious mind. So you're waiting for the other shoe to fall off, although you're making $350,000 a year. This is called a samskara. It means that your mind has been conditioned by a pet theory. Your pet theories have been woven usually from the age of birth up to the age of 7. By the time you're 7, you already have some main pet theories. For example, in Texas, some of you have been raised with staunch religion, which is fine. My respect to that. But anything that you've been raised with still puts a set of conditions on your mind. I'm not saying good or bad, I'm just saying it's there, it's conditioned. The enlightened person is like this. Even in church. In other words, every second they are intensely in the moment. I cannot condition an enlightened person because if you follow the breath, you do not become conditioned. Why? Breath is neither Muslim, Jewish, or Catholic. Breath is. There's no conditioning to it. This talk, I want this talk to be twofold. First, I'm going to talk to you about why you hang on tenaciously and stubbornly to your very last wound. It's like you've resolved everything. You've quit smoking, you've lost weight, your relationship with husband is improving every day, but there's this one last thing that you refuse to let go. That's what this first part of this talk is. Why do you hang on to your last samskara? It could be jealousy, stinginess, cigarettes, anything. Okay? Why? Let's bring up some reasons why people hang on to their very last stubborn negativity. Number one, you've been with it so long, it's become your best friend. So you say, who the heck is Kambiz Naficy? The cigarette, has been your best friend for 16 years. Who's this guy talking about Kriya Yoga? I'm your best friend. In other words, the habit becomes your best friend. So you've got a real loyalty between you and that self-induced limitation that's harming you. Again, that could be anything. It could be stinginess, jealousy, pride, racial prejudice, 5 cigarettes a day. Anything that's repeated goes into your subconscious mind, cuts a groove into the CD of your mind, so the song keeps repeating. That's what a samskara is. Your subconscious does not care whether you think a positive thought or a negative. It simply loves repetition. So if your self-image is one of a smoker with a cigarette hanging here, subconscious says, yes sir. It doesn't care. Anything repetitive seeps into the subconscious, becomes part of your self-identity. Anything. And it has no sense of humor. If you say nice things to yourself, subconscious will say yes, ma'am. If you say bad things to yourself, subconscious says yes, ma'am. It doesn't care. It's a tape recorder. And it's driving 80% of your entire life. That's what's scary. Scary and good. Think of a Boeing 747. Two ways you can fly that aircraft. One, pilot has the hand on the yoke, guiding. That's called mindfulness, living in the present moment, because the pilot is guiding. Second one is a machine called the autopilot. Autopilot is a computer that takes in the wind velocity, the altitude of the highest peak that you're flying over, how much gas you've got in the plane. All the data goes into the autopilot. The problem with an autopilot is you don't turn that thing on when there's a tornado coming at night over the Rocky Mountains, because the terrain is changing, the weather is changing, it's nighttime, you don't have visibility, so the information in the autopilot might be old. I just talked about your life. Your life is that 747. What do I mean? Anytime you're not following your breath, every time you're not here, your life is on autopilot. Somebody says, how are you, Trish? You say, fine. See, that fine comes from the autopilot. You don't really know how you're feeling. You just said, fine. I went on a commuter train from New York to New Jersey several weeks ago. The entire wagon had the Wall Street Journal open with iPhones beeping. So this is mass destruction. I have nothing against Apple Corporation, but when you have an entire wagon reading one newspaper with one gadget on your lap, that's samskara. You're not here. And your children playing electronic games. Again, I'm not a communist, I'm not against these things, but is anybody present anymore? You see couples at a restaurant, romantic restaurant, checking their iPhones. You're not here. Nobody's here. It's so easy to control you. All I've got to do is send a message to all the iPhones. Nobody's here. That's your challenge in spirituality. I'm not telling you who to be. I'm just saying, are you here in your own life? Or are you being commanded by the autopilot? So why do you hang on to that last bit of stubbornness? Number one, you say, it's my best friend. I've been with that habit since I was 5. I don't know anything but that habit. It's my self-identity. Number two, you say, Kambiz, what if I try and fail? So spiritual journey is for the brave people. Anytime you work on yourself, you're being extremely brave. Why? Because you're breaking mental, emotional habits. And there's two parts of you that hates habits. Your mind and your ego. They're twin sisters. You know this name, Kambiz Naficy? That's just the ego part of me. The core of me has no name. It has no social security number. That has no passport. It's your soul. So two parts of you that hates change. Mind and twin sister ego. If your name is David, that's your ego part. But if you follow your breath, that's your soul part. If you go to church and melt into prayer, so there's no David praying, you become the prayer. That's soul. So the second reason why you don't change, your mind and your ego really hate change. This is why in every country, there's just a few people leading. The rest are following. Why? Followers hate change. They'd rather have somebody else make decisions. This is why in every country, there's a select group. Good or bad, there's a select group controlling millions. Because your mind hates change. If you were to take control of your own 747, then the leadership of all nations would start to feel very fidgety. What if you had 350 million citizens that were inner guided? Again, this is not a revolutionary talk. You get up in the morning, you decide whether you want cornflakes or your iPhone or mountain climbing. You're inner guided. Inner guided people are very tough to manage by other people because you've got an internal guidance system. So, third reason why you don't change. Third reason is, if I change, who's going to be the one who remains? You see, I had a very wonderful student. She spent half her life trying to make peace between mom and dad. I do these one-on-one 12-session sessions. On the fourth session, I called her and I said, how are mom and dad? She said, they're fighting. And I said, are they feeling awful? And she said, no. I said, what if your mom and dad have the kind of marriage that's built on misery and fighting? What if they don't want you to make peace between them? And she went, oh my God. I've just spent 24 years trying to save their marriage. I just realized they're happy when they fight. That's the kind of romance it is. The next day I called her, she said, I'm by the LA beach and I'm 1 year old. I have no idea what to do. You see? Now, what a healer does for you, they knock you out of your own orbit so that you realize that this role you've been assuming all your life is really unnecessary. You leave your parents alone because they may be happy fighting. Maybe. So then you don't know what to do with yourself. Another reason why people don't change, they don't know what will be left once they change. What if you're a lifelong smoker, suddenly you're mountain biking and it feels queer that your clothes don't smell like smoke? You know, there was a man who was very lustful. I took him into deep Kriya Yoga. He started seeing many more dimensions of women, not just one. And then he said, this is really queer because I'm not just lust anymore. I'm seeing human beings. And he was feeling very odd because the perspective has changed. So a lot of people don't change because they're afraid of what will be remaining afterwards. What if you're jealous and suddenly you become unjealous? It feels queer. New set of clothes, untried. That's another reason why people don't change. So, you know, ask yourself, first of all, ask yourself, what is that last samskara, that last stubborn thing that I'm still holding on to? You know? Could be some family issue, some money issue. You know, the big issues are usually around religion, God, money, sex, love. Those are the big. The biggest emotions are surrounding those issues. The most emotional. Sexuality, religion, what is God? Do I deserve unconditional love? Is there any such thing in this world as unconditional love? Most people have big problems with that. In one of my workshops, I just give a free hug. Half the audience starts to cry. So you ask yourself, why are people sobbing over a hug? It's because that kind of hug, I don't expect anything back. So people get all emotional. Why do people get emotional over a hug? It's because most people don't believe that love without an agenda even exists. It's a big issue. How many people are even aware that you're hanging on to one last big thing and you're not releasing that last thing that's tripping you up? We call them samskaras in the Vedas. Anybody aware of something? Not only one.
Only one?
Right. But believe me, if you continue working on yourself, there'll be one left. And that one will fight for its life. Now, who's fighting? It's your ego. This one called Catherine, Cindy, the one with the name and social security number, that's called your ego. It's a false self. In other words, you paste together your thoughts and you say, oh, that's Cindy. Yoga laughs at the idea of Cindy. Yoga says your mind is just jumping from branch to branch. But when you paste those thoughts together, you say, oh, this is Cindy. And if I forget your name, you get all insulted. But you're not your name. You're not even your random thoughts. You're changing them every few seconds. You're not even your emotions. Your emotions are changing every few seconds. Are you your body? Not really. Every year and a half, all your cells regenerate. So now you're in deep trouble. You're not your thoughts. You're not your emotions. You're not your physical body. Who are you? This. It's called consciousness. Anytime you want, you can become mindful of this second. A dolphin can't do that. A dolphin cannot review its own thoughts. A chimp is very intelligent. A chimp cannot witness its own mind. The only living entity that can split its mind between the chattering mind and this cool witness. The only living entity that can do that is a human. So a dolphin is extremely intelligent, can pick up the vibration of fish swimming 5 miles away, but it cannot witness its own mind. But a human can say, I am impatient right now. You can witness that in yourself. So what is the meditative theory on enlightenment? It says, if you progress to a point where most of the time you can mind your mind, you're on your way to enlightenment. What does it mean to mind the mind? Turn around and watch the movie screen of your mind, and then something really interesting will happen. The minute you watch the mind disappears. We'll do a little exercise right now. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. When I say 3, I want you to stare at this floor. Imagine that this floor is the movie screen of your mind, okay? When I say 3, I want you to look at the screen of the mind and literally, second by second, wait to see what your next thought is going to be. Everybody get the instruction? Okay? Take a look at the floor. Wait for me to count. Slow down your breathing a little bit. Slow down. Imagine the floor is a screen of your mind. 1, 2, 3. Waiting for the next thought. Wait. Wait for the next thought. How many people have no thought? Okay. Question is why? If there's one of you, see, if you only have mind, then who would be left to mind the mind? The only way you can mind the mind is if there's 2 of you. There's no way you could have split if there was only 1 of you. So who was waiting? If you're your mind, who was waiting? You wouldn't have succeeded in the exercise. What am I really saying? Yoga says you're not your mind. The mind is just blabbing away. You're this queen. You're this noble king. Just watch it. That's your real nature. When you come out of deep meditation, you witness things like, oh, I'm kind of irate today. I'm jealous today. But you're not jealousy. You're noticing that you're jealous. That's enlightenment. Imagine if you lived every day minding the mind. It's like, no, I don't want this thought. I want this one. there would be no stress. You may be facing a recession, but a recession doesn't necessarily bring stress unless you worry. You know, the dolphin doesn't worry about a fish recession. It just goes swimming to see if there's a fish or not. Either there's a fish or it'll die, but there's no worry. Worry comes from your mind. If you were all to become witnesses, you see that you have no problems. You have issues to manage, but that's not a problem. So, I want you to practice minding your mind. Minding the mind means just take a look at what you're about to think. Or take a look into your inner body and see how the body's feeling. Or take a look into your emotions and just witness what you're feeling. The witnessing of feeling is different from feeling itself. Will you become feelingless? No way. You become very free. So when we start to meditate, I don't want you to drive thoughts away. When we meditate, I want you to allow thoughts to come. But there's a difference. If you don't believe the meaning of thoughts, you have a very good meditation. So you can have 5,000 thoughts. As long as you don't believe the meaning of them, you have a restful meditation. Never try to drive thought away. It's just, the mind is going to stick to you like glue. Let the thoughts come, say, oh, look at you. I haven't seen you in a long time. Like that. That's the attitude. Never be bothered by the number of thoughts during the meditation. Let them come. All you do is this. The minute you watch your mind, it disappears. So then, I'm going to have you face a very real question. Can something real vanish? The answer is no. Love. Take love. Love is not a mood. Love is something that rises from within us. It's an instinct. So then, right before you die, you're going to remember two things. Who you loved and who gave you love. I don't care how rich or poor you are. With that last exhalation, you're just going to remember two things. Who gave you love, who you gave love to. So it's something real. But what about the mind? Why does the mind vanish when I say, waiting for the next thought? If it vanishes, it means it's not real. What am I saying? You're having 60,000 thought bubbles per day. None of them are about the present moment. All of them are about the past or the future. And then think about this. From kindergarten up to this moment, how many of your worries have manifested exactly the way you thought? Probably less than 1%. I'm not saying bad things haven't happened to you, but even the interpretation bad is coming from your mind. Like if somebody steals your car radio out there right now, it's very rare that you're going to go say, 1985 Toyota Corolla had a Samsung radio stolen at 10:15. Normally what you're going to say is, ever since I went deer hunting 6 years ago, all of the world's bad luck is upon me. Look at how unlucky I am. The stealing of this radio is just another sign. So you see, you're overlaying all this junk on everything that's occurring. You don't have a clear mind. Anyways, why is mind unreal? Because when you watch it, it disappears. So what I'm saying is, stop believing your thoughts. You see, Kambiz, I went to MIT or Texas A&M. I'm very smart. I don't want to forget my mind. And yoga will say, no, your intelligence comes from the source of thought. And you say, was that Texas A&M? I said, no, no, no. The gap between two thoughts is the source of creativity. If you have a relaxed brain, you're going to have enough creativity at your architectural firm. If your brain is like this, you're constricting yourself. Every animal in this world needs to rest a few hours a day. That gap between two thoughts is called pure consciousness. Watch my hand. I'm going to take this hand to this hand. And while I do this, I'm going to say Om. I'm going to see if you can follow my Om for this period of time without one other thought. Just Om. Come. Om. Who had no thought other than my Om? That's pure consciousness. Did you go stupid? No. Did you lose your IQ? No. You just relax your brain. What does that mean? Meditation means you are on one thought or no thought. If you stay on one thought, that field is called pure consciousness. That field is the source of your creativity. If I keep you there 20 minutes a day, you'll have all the creativity you need. You will not lose your intelligence. You're just not getting involved in cycle battle. Save yourself. The world is going towards mental chaos. All this noise, you know. It used to be that you had your bathroom moment by yourself. Now the iPhone is texting you in the bathroom. So you've even lost that. And this will drive you crazy eventually, because every tiger in the forest spends some time under the shade, just breathing. Even a tiger. So you're part of nature. You're not different. You must save yourself. Do not believe 60,000 thought bubbles per day. They're random. Or here's another exercise. Patanjali, one of the founders of Raja Yoga, he says if you can do 12 of these, just staying on the fingertips and just with the breath, you're already in deep meditation. I'm just asking for 12 seconds of staying on the breath and watching my fingertips. Do you want to try? 12 seconds. Here's your challenge. 12 seconds. 12 seconds is considered deep meditation. Let's go. This means inhale, this means exhale. You just watch my fingertip and you just breathe. I'm not asking you to breathe, I'm saying be aware of breath. Be aware. Ready? Now watch what happens. Did anybody have 12 seconds of no thought other than the breath? Okay. Did it feel calming? Yes. You weren't in the future.
Exciting. I'm like, oh, I'm not thinking, but then I'm thinking because I'm thinking, oh, it's exciting, so I'm already thinking. So that's messed up.
No, but excitement is better than anxiety. So for a first step, you did really well. Yeah. But what happened to your intelligence? What if you own 3 businesses and you got a really critical call? Would you have been able to do this, come out and make a decision? Yes? I can give you the multiplication tables while you're doing this with me. You'll come up with every single math answer. Subconscious knows all the answers. Okay? So, let's talk about why yoga is good for you. Yoga doesn't change your life in Dallas. It doesn't change Dallas. It doesn't change your boyfriend or girlfriend. The only thing that yoga does, it changes this. Meaning, the outlook, the perspective, the lens covering your eyes. So what's so important about changing your perspective? Somebody will say, oh, this guy is just trying to mood make, you know, I mean, I've got this heavy mortgage and he's asking me to change perspective. But I still have the mortgage. How's that going to relax me? Listen to what yoga says. Yoga says, nothing in Dallas is real other than your mind. Very revolutionary thing in the sense that Dallas doesn't exist unless your mind is looking at it. I was 9 years old when JFK was shot at Daley Plaza. Naveed was driving me. He didn't know that I was a child of the 60s. He got to Daley Plaza, my mind started to go wild. You know why? Because if you were born in 1953, you've seen that one shot blowing up JFK's brain. You've seen that footage like 650 times within 3 days. So the minute I saw Daley Plaza, it was a very interesting moment because Naveed, the young man, he had no connection to Daley Plaza. My mind, having seen those newsreels, immediately went back to November 1963. What am I really saying here? Daley Plaza was just cement. It had no reality of its own. Because I had seen the assassination, for me that concrete had meaning. For Naveed, it has zero meaning. You see what I'm saying? So Daley Plaza doesn't exist if your mind doesn't exist. That's what I'm telling you. This is a very deep thing I'm proposing to you. I'm saying, if your mind changes, your entire life in Dallas changes. There is no Dallas. I mean, don't get patriotic on me. Love your country, love your state. But I'm saying you love your state because your mind is conditioned to love your state. If I bring a Norwegian here, I have no connection. Think about this. If you're having relationship problems, what if you change your mind a little bit? Like they talk about diamond rings and romantic dinners at an Italian restaurant to arouse love again in your marriage. What if you tried a different angle? Yoga says everything is made of consciousness. And the steering wheel of consciousness is attention. See, yoga says all of this is made of consciousness. Well, how do you steer this? You steer it through attention. So what if you started paying more attention to your girlfriend instead of Italian dinners? What would happen? Big things would happen. Why? Because whatever you pay attention to, you're funneling the God force towards what you're paying attention to. Most marriages break up because of lack of attention. It's not Italian dinners. Make it a practice to pause during the day and think of your wife. I wonder what she's doing. Or husband, whatever. Play with attention. Yoga says this God force is driven by attention. So when you put attention on something, you're pumping God force into it. That goes for your kidney. That goes for your houseplants. If you pay attention to mathematics, you become a mathematician. Just as simple as that. Everything is under your control. What's empowering about yoga? Yoga says nothing external outside of you is real. You're playing solitaire with the cosmos. In other words, what you call your Almighty Lord is a pulsation of consciousness. 8 years after I began meditating, I went into the highest state of samadhi. I was visiting Satya Sai Baba, leaning against one of his trees. Something started to swirl. I dug my fingers into the tree bark, but I was ousted out. By the time I came to, the only thing that existed was That's all there was. All of space was a heartbeat. They call it spanda. In other words, life comes from a beat. It's a pulse. And that pulse is conscious. It goes outward, it creates. It comes inward, it gathers itself to silence. It's called nimesa, annesa. Nimesa, annesa. In other words, even the Lord gathers herself into silence, and then she goes outward and creates physical matter, and then gathers herself into silence again. Your life is like this. You go into rest, activity. Rest, activity. What if you stop watching the news so many hours? What is the enlightened person's formula for living? Very simple. Go into silence, be with your own breath. This is the sanctuary. Come back home. When you rest, and then go out and act. No other complications. If you need to read the Wall Street Journal, do it for a designated amount of time, and then it's over information. Rest, activity. I've got students who are stockbrokers. Doesn't matter. Same formula. Go within, come out and out. That's it. Think about all of the complications in your life that you and your mind have created. I would say 80–90% of anything that makes you suffer, you've created yourself. There's jealousy, there's pride, there's racial prejudice, there's fear of ISIS cutting off your head before they've even landed. Some of you are afraid of death 17 years before you die. I work with the dying on their last week. They're actually quite calm when they're about to go. So you spend 35 years afraid of the day that you die. But on that week, you're extremely calm. Because there's something about facing the moment. There's usually no fear. Waste of time. 17 years worrying about the day you die. You're quite calm when it's happening. You see? So, think about your pain. Think about the last 2 weeks. How many of the problems in your life were created by your own mind? How much news? Recession, this and that, unemployment. Fine, you want to be compassionate, but you're not in charge of all this. Do what you can and then release the results. How many problems are you grinding out for yourself? This monkey mind, 60,000 thoughts per day. Why does yoga make you happy? It changes your perspective. You look at things and you realize that the way you look at things makes your reality. Whatever you put into your mind becomes your reality. This is another powerful truth, huh? Your mind doesn't care. It's like a crystal ball. What you decide to put in here, then you start to believe. This is another very deep truth. There is no truth unless you allow it into your mind. Once you allow it in, it becomes your truth. If you had no mirror in your house, you'd have no idea what you look like. Half your problems would be gone. There's no opinion. There's no judgment. It's the mind. What does the advertising industry play with? Your mind. Of course, mind and ego are the same. Why does yoga make you feel good? Yoga talks about detachment. What does detachment mean? Detachment is not apathy about life. Detachment means you have one central truth in the center of your mind. It's called Mano Bindu. Mano Bindu is the center of your consciousness. Let's say you're in love with your granddaughter. That is your central truth. It's this little girl. Okay? Everything else is in the periphery. Mano Bindu means each of you has one strong truth. Everything else revolves in the periphery. That kind of person is very powerful. You know, Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay, would go around 7 years before winning the championship. I am the world boxing champion. One truth. So the question is, how many of you have one lasting truth in the center of your mind? If you do, you're going to be a very calm person. Why? All the other gibberish is going on around the periphery of your mind. You're not a limited person. You don't need to become. Let's say you're in love with that granddaughter. That is the central truth. Or Jesus Christ. You choose. Or hiking. When you have that central truth, you're detached. Detachment means you move in the world like the angel of God, but if something doesn't happen, you don't become overly clingy. You buy a Jaguar car, you just ride it. When it's old, you toss it away. That's detachment. It doesn't mean you don't buy a Porsche. It just means you ride it and then you toss it out. It means you go to an orphanage, do your act of kindness and then leave. Don't look behind you to see who's thanking you. Up to the point where even your life, you came from light, in the middle you have a body, you go back to light. At the age of 62, I'm now realizing that everybody's lined up in this queue to leave. We just lost a dear one 2 days ago. It really is like a queue. I had this wonderful auntie, I loved her. She was 98. We took her to a Chinese restaurant. She had a lot of food that night. Next morning, she took a shower. When she came out, she couldn't stop shivering. We wrapped her in a blanket, took her to the hospital, she was gone. The medical report had no medical symptom for it. In my native language, they just said, extinguished. That was the translation of the word. She just went. I mean, you know, I'm not old, but at my age, you realize people are lined up to go. As if they come from a light. They live out this picture album, you know. It's like everything you've ever done is a picture album. And then at the end, they go. They're like lined up. It's like after my auntie died, I went back to the Chinese restaurant. The chair was there. The chef was there. But my auntie wasn't there. I started to laugh. It's a strange thing to do because it's kind of surreal, you know. She was right on that chair. And then she's not there. What does that mean? If you really think about it, sometimes the news of death makes you laugh, not because you're heartless. Where do they go? My feeling is they don't just go. You just go from matter to energy. Energy, physical matter, energy. Why does yoga help you? Because through the asanas, you work on your glands, on your joints, on your blood pressure. Why does yoga help you? Because yoga fixes one truth in the center of your mind. During the evening news. It's a central truth. So you say, Kambiz, this stuff is wonderful, but it's so hard to do. How could I Om during the Mission Impossible movie? I do things like this. I go to Mission Impossible, and then I follow the breath, just as Tom Cruise is hanging off there. It's awful. You want your money back, because it gets rid of the excitement. You should go to James Bond and start Oming in your mind. And you see, it's awful. It loses all these. Why? Because you come back to your inner truth. Don't try it, but it works. I've had students who say to me, Kambiz, I'm very happy, but I get overwhelmed even by happiness. There's some of you who get overwhelmed by good things also. That's because your sense of deservedness is low. If you have one really great week with everything, it starts to overwhelm. Why? You don't have a self. You need to have something central to come back to. Do not stop until you find something that feels true to you at the center of your being. Everything else is in the periphery. You're not heartless, you're still helping society, but there's a central truth That keeps you calm. What is your central truth? Find it. Could be a hobby, could be your grandchild, it could be Jesus Christ, something. Without that central truth, you're like a sailboat without a rudder. You're all over the place. And I can control it. Look around, see what's happening. Does anybody have an anchor? As far as 70% divorce rate, do people try attention instead of diamond rings and Italian restaurants? Attention. Do you pause to pay attention to your spouse midday? Attention channels the God force. Exercise paying attention. It's very romantic. Why does yoga make you feel good? It says there are 3 body types in this world. Kapha, Vata, Pitta. Pitta is the one with the high blood pressure, gets up at 4:30 a.m., owns 15 corporations, maximum achiever, high blood pressure, so forth. The worst thing he can have is Mexican food with chili sauce, or drink, or caffeine. And you find that a lot of Pittas love caffeine. They don't realize that they're hyping themselves up. That's why it feels good. But it's not good for them. Now, I'm a Vata. Vatas are airy people. See how thin my bones are? Vatas are not grounded. So Vatas don't do well with very cold weather or food that doesn't have tissue. And it's like a watermelon, lettuce, the things that are leafy and don't have much substance make Vatas even more airy. So I've got Vata students who take off during meditation. They're like kites. and I need to ground them. Vatas need to be grounded. So a Vata does very well with like a Kapha girlfriend or wife. Kaphas are wonderful. Kapha is Santa Claus. Kapha has big bones, kind eyes. They get up at noon and say, "Oh God, this is such a hard life." Don't worry about it. Everything will be fine. You know, they're very kind people. Children and pets love them. Kind eyes, oily skin, big bones. And they're grounded. They're not worried people. But then you have to get them moving, you know. So a Kapha needs a mover and shaker in their life. So the worst thing for a Kapha to eat is meat and potatoes or sticky rice. A Kapha does well with a cup of coffee because they need to move. You need to excite them. It's very hard for them to go on a trip. They like their rocking chair. You know. And by the way, most of you are a combination of, I'm talking about the science of Ayurveda, so which is the medicinal part of yoga. It says, recognize your body type. You're usually one of 2 types, but one of them is dominant. So I'm a Vata, my dominant side. Vatas are also artistic and they're good with language. I have no issues speaking and writing compositions. They're good with language. They also understand intricate feelings. They have subtle minds. But you need to ground them. A Kapha, you need to get them moving, get them to exercise, get them to take trips. They need to take more risks. Pittas, you have to calm them down. 2 Pittas getting married to each other, they will kill each other. Because they're both like this, you know. It's not a good scene, 2 Pittas together. Okay, how many of you see a dominant Pitta in yourself? You're mover and shaker, first thing in the morning, very ambitious. Arrive exactly on time. Not a single Pitta? Good. Yeah, like Pitta's my second trait. So if things are not going right with joy of life, I start to shake people up. Yeah. Okay. What about Kaphas? Do we have Kaphas?
Yes.
Yeah. So kinds of foods make you more lackadaisical? What feels heavy to you? Make you sleepy?
Cheese.
Yes. And also, you know, if you go by the science of Ayurveda, you'll actually even pick the right kinds of friends, because there are friends who are very complementary to your nature. You know, my wife is a very happy girl and uncomplicated. You know, Shadi can get on a bicycle and just laugh. My mind is into quantum physics and Vedas, and she says, "Oh, don't worry." You see, that's good for me. I needed a happy girl. So pick your mate properly. Hopefully. Why is yoga good for you? Because you never feel lonely. Why? Because this witness, literally, when I give you initiation Kriya Yoga, I will enliven a force within your body. And this force rises and it's alive. It's called Kundalini Shakti. It is a force, it's a divine force that's alive in your body. You feel like you have company all day. It's your other half, your better half. The feeling of loneliness is gone. You feel like there's a wise being right alongside. Like almost the invisible friends you used to have when you were children. And this is no theory. There is a part of you that awakens with proper initiation. Once that being is awakened, you'll never feel lonely again. Lonely comes from the idea of I, David, versus 7.5 billion people out there in the world. With yoga, you start to feel oneness. Oneness means this: every time your mind stops to chatter, in that solitude, you start to feel oneness, like, I know these people. You see, the minute your mind stops to chatter, this feeling of Cindy, Catherine, Paul, David is all gone. When the ego is gone, you just feel like hugging people. It's like you feel very easy with people. My life is very strange these days because I teach in Sri Lanka, India, US, Canada, Middle East. I'm on the go, you know. And it's the same lesson that I teach everywhere. The other thing is happening to me. I'm feeling very easy with people. It's because the outer personalities almost disappeared for me and you. So it's like in a hotel lobby, I just talk to people. I'm not trying to be sociable. I'm seeing that one force pulsing in different bodies. This will happen to you. The deeper your meditation gets, the more you see that one force under different masks. And when you see one force, you have no issue talking to people because you're dealing with one force. You know, right now we're seeing different colored clothing and it's all a joke. The appearance by itself is a joke. You get to realize, the more you do this, the more you realize people are after the same thing. They want love, they want security. Children's smile is the same anywhere you go. The citizens of the world are incredibly similar to each other. And yoga teaches that. You stop looking at the differences. It's a feeling of, you know what it is? I'm going to end the talk by saying this. Yoga means you feeling more comfortable under your own skin. Because, you know, I've been to a lot of spiritual centers and everybody's wearing white and everybody's burning incense and everybody's got an om hanging here. Forget that stuff. That's external stuff. The meaning of yoga is that your personality and mind merge with your soul. Yoga means union. When this chattering mind merges with your inner witness, you start to feel at ease with who you are. At this point, 50% of the 18-year-olds on the east coast of Florida and California are wanting breast surgery for their 18th birthday. That is a disaster for self-confidence. Because I don't care what you look like. 18-year-old is beautiful. I don't care what you look like. So for that percentage to be up there like that, it means that you have nothing on the inside to rely on. Why don't you like the nose that God gave you? Yoga is about feeling good under your own skin. BMW, no BMW, irrelevant. Do you feel good under your own skin? All of the powerful people of history have felt one with who you are. For as long as you're faking it, you have not connected with your power. If you can feel good about who you are, then when somebody gets attracted to you, they adore you. That will happen because we have so many tastes. It's just that we're all getting fidgety about our ears, our nose, whatever. And then of course you lose attraction. The minute you jump out of yourself, you've lost everything. Like, what's the definition of fear? Definition of fear is that you do something to me and I lose my power to you. That's fear. That's all it is. You turn over your inner power to something external. It's a very bad trait because the minute you lose your inner self, you've lost everything. Even on the dating scene, the minute you lose yourself, you've lost everything. So, some of the reasons why yoga makes you feel. Ayurveda, your body type, proper food, the idea of detachment. Have one central truth in the center of your mind. Everything else is in the periphery. That's your compass. You know, the idea of if you stay on one thought, you're residing in a field called pure consciousness. In that spirit of non-thought, in that period, you're at the source of thought. You're at the source of creativity. Idea of yoga, everything comes from inside out. What does that mean? There is no Dallas. Dallas is a wonderful place, but it's made up of the minds of the citizens of Dallas. The concrete doesn't mean anything. If you change the minds of the citizens of Dallas, the architecture of Dallas will change. Everything's made of the mind. Digest your life through your mind. If you change your mind, everything will start to quickly change. It's not mood making. You're seeing everything through these two. The other thing is, this mind is broadcasting to nature's mind. So, take inventory of your life. Financial, physical, spiritual, romantic, social results of your life right now. Take inventory of the current results of your life and find the parallel belief system in your mind. Everything that's happening to you right now has a parallel in one of your belief systems. It is impossible for you to be consistently achieving some results without a parallel belief system. It doesn't exist. You broadcast the belief system, you get the same result. That's how it goes. Over the long term, over the long term. In any case, one of the reasons I'm here in Dallas, with the help of Barb and Navi, we had a previous weekend workshop. We had a goal of getting a group of you to learn this very powerful science of Kriya Yoga, which is the circulation of magnetizing energetic breath through 72,000 of your energy centers. You will get a taste of it this morning. And once this science lands in Dallas, it'll spread its wings very, very quickly. The name of my website is joyoflifeorganization.com. On that website, you're going to find tons and tons of material. and there's a YouTube channel that I have. This book is basically the culmination of 25 years of my experience. It's here and on Amazon. Do we have any questions now regarding the talk I have? Same result as yesterday. Okay. So we can say goodbye for now, and we'll get ready for our practice.